I want to share with you a devotional thought today that might impact your life. I'm going to start with an illustration of this. Is kind of simple, but you'll understand. If I were to give one of the boys in our church, say a 7 or 8, maybe a 9-year-old boy, if I were to give him a bag of candy, and I said, hey buddy, I've got this bag of candy and I think it's enough for you and all those kids over there, all the kids here in our church setting, and he looked over there and there was a bunch of his friends there, and I said, go over there to those kids and share this candy with them. What do you think would happen? Well, first of all, you'd say I wasn't very wise by giving a boy a bag of candy. And you're probably right. In fact, you might think I'm bad by giving him all that sugar and all that sweet stuff. But this is an illustration. So supposing I gave him this bag of candy and I told him to share it with his friends. Now, one of the things that might happen is he might go over to his friends and say, hey, look, Pastor gave me a bag of candy. We can all have some. And he might pour it all out on the floor or on the table or somewhere and share that candy with those friends. Or he might look at that bag of candy and think, none of those other kids know that the pastor gave me this bag of candy. I think I'm going to keep it to myself and enjoy it myself. Well, we'd think he was very selfish. It was given to him freely. It was given to him freely so he could give it out freely, and he should be giving it out as he was instructed. Matthew tells us of a time when Jesus sent out his apostles. And at that time, he gave them power to perform miracles. In fact, in Matthew chapter 10, we read that he told them to preach the gospel of the kingdom, and he told them to heal the sick. He told them to cleanse the lepers. He even told them to raise the dead. He'd given them supernatural power to do these things. And then in Matthew chapter 10 and verse 8, he says, freely you have received, freely give. Now, supposing a couple of those disciples, a couple of those apostles, had selfishly thought, this is some miraculous power. This is a valuable power. Let's go out and, when we find somebody that's sick, let's tell him we can heal him, but let's charge him a little bit. Let's get healing for 2 shekels or healing for several pieces of silver. We would think he was selfish. He'd been told, freely you have received, freely give. In a recent devotional I read by Henry Blackaby, he used this portion of Scripture to declare there's no room for misers in God's kingdom. What a thought. No room for misers in God's kingdom. Everything we have comes from God. I'm reminded of the Scripture in James chapter 1 and verse 17 that says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights. Every good gift, every perfect gift. Our salvation is a gift. Our salvation is free. We don't earn our salvation. We don't deserve our salvation. It's a gift from God. Security is a gift from God. Our financial security, our eternal security, all are gifts from God. Whether it's our health, whether it's our wealth, it's because God and his goodness to us has given it to us. One of the major mistakes we make, I think, is thinking that we own things. We think we have worked hard, we've earned them, we deserve things. But the fact is, and I'll remind you of this because you already know it, they're just temporary. One day we'll leave all these things to someone else. So why does God give us stuff? Why does God give us wealth? Why does God give us advantages that others don't have? I believe all he gives us is to live or to give. Those are the reasons. He gives us things so we can live, and we can live at several levels of comfort. We choose those levels sometimes. And we can give. We can give whatever is left over from what it takes for us to live. In 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7, remember, we read, God loveth a cheerful giver. If we're not careful, We can become more attached, listen carefully, we can become more attached to the gifts God gives us than we are to the giver. What a sad thing. So, what do we have to give? We have the message of salvation. First thing that we should think of when we're giving is giving the message. We have opportunities that God places in our lives. We have times when God sovereignly puts people in our paths that need to hear about Him. We can get out the message of salvation. Freely you have received, freely give. Secondly, we have manpower we can give. We have the ability to give of ourselves. We have the ability to help people. We have the ability to look and see the needs of others and help them physically or emotionally. We can help. We can give manpower. And the third thing, you knew I'd get to this, we have money. We have financial power. What do you think we should give to? God's work or our work? Well, both need money, but God's work is more important. What do you think we should give for? God's glory or for our self-interests? You see, I agree with Blackaby when he said there's no room for misers in God's kingdom. We're thinking about missions over the next several weeks as we have our missionaries come in instead of our regular missions conference. They'll be preaching on Sunday mornings, a couple of weeks, Sunday mornings, and I'll give them the pulpit so they can share their heart for missions with all of us. But I want us to think about what we have, what we've been given. And I want us to remember that Christ said, freely you have received, freely give. That's my thought for today.